How do you explain to voters in your state the very real threat to democracy that existed in 2020 and the threat that still remains on the horizon?
Well, as you imply, not everyone can read this 45-page indictment. So what I say is that what somebody tried to do was hijack an election. And I make a distinction that's very clear here. I'm not talking about disagreement. Reasonable people, as the indictment says, can disagree and say anything they want about the election of 2020 or any other election. People in America have a right to be wrong. But what's different here is that it's not just speech or opinion, it's conduct. It's conduct utilizing lies to hijack, to interfere with the process of ratifying a presidential election. That's the bottom line. We have processes, we have rules. I don't get into all the granular detail, but someone tried to interfere with those rules. Again, okay to disagree, go to court, plead your case. But once the dust has settled on all the litigation and we have electors representing the states, you can't just pretend that they're not the electors and go in and try to pull a fast one on the American people. That's basically what happened.
As a Secretary of State, how much of making sure that the 2024 election in your state is safe and secure feels as though it is within your purview, in your control, and how much of it feels like some of the stuff that is atmospheric, social media companies not being willing to really grapple with disinformation, sometimes not even being willing to uphold their own disinformation and misinformation policies? What is it you feel you can control, and what is it that keeps you up at night worrying about other people not doing what they need to do?
Well, the name of the game always, always, always is partnerships. Our office can't do it alone. We never could and we never can. We have to leverage partnerships with trusted voices. And that's really what it comes down to, finding trusted voices in whatever community to let people know that our elections are fundamentally fair, accurate, honest, and secure. So what I've done in Minnesota is I partnered with large employers and businesses. I partnered with professional sports teams. I was partners with the faith communities. They very often are the trusted voices, or local governments. Maybe it's not the Secretary of State in a state. Maybe it's someone at the county or city level who people know as their friends or neighbors. But bit by bit, piece by piece, we got to build that wall. And it's a wall against disinformation. Now, I'm not naive, neither are your viewers. There's probably a quarter of Americans who are immune to any of those appeals, always, because they just fundamentally have a different view of our election system. They think it's rigged or fixed or stolen. About a quarter think the opposite. But the gettable middle, about 40%, according to the most reliable polling that I've seen, they are gettable. It's not a light switch. It's not binary. They might have a lot of faith and confidence in the elections in their area, but maybe they heard something from another state or another city. But it's up to us to let people know that, at least in Minnesota, I'm quite confident in the rest of the country, our elections are fundamentally fair, accurate, honest, and secure. And we can talk about the procedures. You know, if someone says, hey, elections equipment is stealing votes by transferring them from candidate A to point candidate B, that's not the case, but what we can say going forward is, look, we test this stuff. We test the elections equipment. We check the work after the election. A lot of people don't know that. I wouldn't blame them for not knowing that, but it's up to everyone who touches democracy, not just me, not just people in government, to let people know that we've thought of these things. There are a lot of checks, balances, and safeguards in the system, and that's not going to get everyone by any means, but it's a start. And particularly in a high-stakes contest like one for President of the United States, and knowing what we know about what happened in 2020, we now have a roadmap in terms of making people understand the election process as much as we can, and making sure they feel confidence in the election so that we don't have Donald Trump or anyone else trying to do what at least the indictment says he did in 2020, which is hijack a presidential election.